What are you doing in there? Are you watching Baggy Hi Fi?
Yes.
Greetings cats and kittens, welcome once again to Baggy Hi Fi, this YouTube channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. Well, this latest video is going to be slightly different, not just because I currently have COVID, still tested positive this morning, had COVID for the last few days, feeling a bit better now, so I have the energy to make a video. But it's different because it's not a Vinyl Finds video, it's not a Listen with Baggy video, it's not a video with a particular artist as the theme. But it does relate to one of my earlier videos. Probably over a year ago, I made a couple of videos about records rescued from a garage. Now, the garage is in a place where I used to live and it's now rented out. But I have quite a lot of my belongings still there. Things I've never really looked at for a long time. Now, some of the records that I have brought over. Some of the best stuff I brought over. But there are still a few dregs. So I guess really this video is about those dregs, because I recently brought over from that garage another bag of records. Also some magazines in there. Now, this is sort of related to a magazine because, like a lot of youngsters in the 90s, I used to produce a music fanzine. It's called Baggy Hi Fi. I think this is the 3rd issue. What was in this one? We had an interview with Laughing Soup Dish. Mark, my friend Mark, did an interview with Mo Tucker of the Velvet Underground. There's some comics in here. Eugene Chadbourne was in here. Lots of record reviews, Girls in the Garage summary. So a lot of this stuff in this magazine, Baggy Hi Fi, I guess my tastes haven't changed that much really, but I used to get review copies sent to me of records and CDs quite a lot, and sometimes they'd be good and other times it would really just be record companies or publicity companies trying to flog sort of quite second-rate stuff. So this batch in this bag, I know some of them I never really listened to at all because they just looked not great. So much for open-mindedness. But so I thought I'd rescue them and listen to them. So I've had this bag for about a week and I've listened to these records now. So I'm going to give you my opinion on these records. Now, all from the early 90s, 1990, 1991, 92. The 90s, I think, was an interesting decade for music. Not just all that Britpop stuff. Very varied, you know. There wasn't the grunge thing happening in the early 90s, and that kind of sort of passed me by. I'm still not really very impressed with grunge, except I used to quite like Mudhoney. But anyway, and there was all that sort of jangly Sarah type indie stuff. The thing is that in the 90s, there were loads and loads of indie labels and lots of people who probably wouldn't be in bands now, were in bands then. What I'm saying is that young people now may not think of forming a band or producing a fanzine. So I guess it was just that time when nearly everyone who liked music was doing one thing or the other. So I'm going to pick out this first batch of records from the bag, from the garage. And here they are. Here's the first one, and this is by Thin White Rope. Used to get a few albums sent by this band, American band, I think. Played this one, and I can see really why they haven't really gone down in history as the most exciting band ever. Sort of swampish, slightly blues inflected, indie guitar, college rock music, maybe a few country tinges. Didn't really like it much. Now this one is by the Ultra 5, and I wish I had listened to this one because this is a garage revival the Ultra 5, Reincarnation, band from New York. Sort of influenced probably by the Cramps and a lot of 60s garage music. Has cheesy organ. Not first rate. I looked them up in the... and they did produce a few records. This is their only long player. Reincarnation by the Ultra 5. Slight gothic tinges to this, but I did enjoy this one. This next one, Australian indie jangle pop, the Summer Suns, Calpurnia. The main fellow in this band was Kim Williams, voice, guitar and bass. Kim Salmon from Kim Salmon and the Surrealists is on this. So this is, I mentioned Sarah Records earlier on, that sort of fey, jangly music influenced by the Byrds and the things that were going on Creation label, I suppose, in the early 90s as well. Very wimpy, really, not particularly distinguished, sort of pleasant, really. I think it's on coloured vinyl, which is the other thing about, you get press releases, fanzine writers would get press releases. Yeah, so I think this one is on coloured vinyl, purple vinyl, the Summer Suns. Now this next one, I bet Vinyl Richie owns a copy of this because it's a compilation of LA punk, LA hardcore. I think this is yes, on Bump Records, 1991. Features American hardcore bands, LA hardcore bands, Flesh Eaters, Adolescents, Bad Religion, MIA, the Minutemen, Red Cross. Probably the Red Cross track stood out for me. Quite like the title. Notes and chords mean nothing to me. Now I think this was an originally came out in 1981, and this is an expanded version that came out 10 years later in 1991. Last one in this batch was by Nikki Sudden. This might be one I might keep. Now Nikki Sudden, if you don't know your post-punk history, Nikki Sudden was in the Swell Maps along with Epic Soundtracks in the late 70s, early 80s. Very interesting, creative, shambolic, chaotic group. I like their records. Now, by the time Nikki Sudden reached the 90s, he was sort of producing Bob Dylan influenced, quirky Americana. This is recorded in the States and produced by Peter Buck of REM. Nice perky picture of Nicky there. Quite good. Quite liked his idiosyncratic Dylan-esque but very English sounding singing style. I think I'll keep this one because Nikki Sudden was a bit of a legend, and there he is, a black and white 8x10 of the artist himself. I'm going to do some needle drops now of these and see what you think of this batch from the garage.
Never running around, and you couldn't get the call. she says she'll stay a one, but tonight she says I belong to you. Oh, and if you hold me close, and we'll forget about the others, forget about tomorrow, and the fears that lie ahead, and the dew shows through her smile, and she says she'll stay a while, but tonight she says I belong to you.
So let's see what's left in this bag from the garage. This is one I definitely never played, but I believe this group became pretty big in the States anyway, and the band were called Ween, and this record was their debut double album called God, Ween, Satan on the Twin Tone label. I decided to look this one up on Discogs, and people are selling this one for about between £120 to £150. So it does have a bit of a rip there though, seam rip, but the vinyl is unplayed until this week, so I may get rid of this one. It's really annoying, juvenile, lo-fi, indie music. Really didn't like it. I'm going to sell it. So the next band didn't really like much either. They are King Missile. They recorded on Kramer's Shimmy Disc label, I think in the late 80s, early 90s. And this is when they went on to a major label. They went on to Atlantic. This album's on Atlantic. It's called The Way to Salvation. Something a bit clever dickish about this music. There's silly song titles. The Boy Who Ate Lasagna and Could Jump Over a Church. Yeah. Didn't really like this one either. Slightly grungy. Again, just college rock. Slightly quirky, but quirky in a not good way. Now this next album is by a short-lived group called No Man, How the West Was Won. Now in this band, No Man, were Roger Miller. I think that Roger Miller was in a band, now what was he called, what was the band? Anyway, a band who probably were quite a fairly indie band who were quite big in the States. So this is him making music. Sounds a bit like the Pixies, and I never liked the Pixies. I could never see what the fuss was about the Pixies. Sort of upbeat, again, indie, guitar, rock. Some interesting little textures in here though. It was not terrible. There's some sequencer in here, some electronics thrown in. Now, Roger Miller is features on this next record I'm going to show, because this is much more interesting, and this is Roger Miller when he was either 15 or 17 in his sort of school band, prog experimental school band called Sproton Layer. And this is a vinyl release in the early 90s of a record recorded in 1970. And this was quite enjoyable. Just read you a little bit from the back. It said that their songs were influenced by the records they enjoyed the most: Syd Barrett's Pink Floyd, The Silver Apples, Soft Machine, SRC, Captain Beefheart, Pretty's For You by Alice Cooper, and Kick Out the Jams. So it's a really nicely deranged amalgam of prog and sort of Soft Machine type experimentation. And I like the juvenile sleeve, obviously a drawing by one of the band members, or maybe a friend of the band members. It definitely has a sort of schoolboy feel to it, but did like this one. Quite obscure, Sproton Layer, with Magnetic Fields Disrupted. So that was Roger Miller when he was a teenager. Roger Miller, who would later be in No Man. I think I've really remembered now who that band was that Roger Miller was in, and it was Mission of Burma. Don't know what that means anything to you. And finally, a band from Scotland, I think from Motherwell, not exactly a Glasgow band, but certainly influenced by Teenage Fan Club, and they were very prominent in the early 90s. But this was really likeable. It's a 12-inch EP by the band Perspex Whiteout. There were lots of bands from Scotland at the time playing this sort of plangent, slow-moving, melodic, big star style jangle, and this band did it well, but they never made it. But probably another one which I will keep. So they are my, sorry for knocking the camera, they are my views on this bag of dregs, maybe from the garage. There are some 7-inch singles to be rediscovered, so I may do a video the next time I visit and rescue more from the garage. Hopefully next time I see you I'll be free of COVID and feeling feeling a bit better. I'm not asking for your sympathy. Bye for now.